it's all so efficient in a way that I would never want to build any of this shit, but I'm like, man, y'all got it down for how to make fucking oranges, you know? So you've had Pop-Tart, your dog, your brand new baby dog.
Baby dog.
For a little under a month.
Yes.
Have you started thinking about what video games you're going to introduce Pop-Tart to make them a gamer dog?
I have not. This is a great question.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good question. Like, what kind of video game is going to make a dog a gamer dog? Like a dog that will just like hang out while I game.
Oh, I had a different idea.
Oh, are you thinking like I'm going to invent some sort of dog controller and we can play Mario Kart together?
I think so.
The answer is Mario Kart because I think it has the most forgiving, what's the word I'm looking for? Handicap options.
Curve? Yeah.
Because they can. The game will pretty much steer and go for you.
Yeah, that is true.
So
you've got the sort of like, options where you can't fall off. The game like won't let you do it.
Exactly. Like if you just know how to go faster by pressing A and then know how to use your items, you could probably do pretty well. Pop-Tart can figure it out. She's a smart doggy.
I think you should consider the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Why that one?
It's a good fucking game, man.
It's a good fucking game. Am I playing with mods or without mods?
I mean, if you're going to play on your console, which I assume that you are, I actually don't know. I think you might be able to put mods on there.
You can use mods on the, I think like the PS5 or PS4 version of like the Game of the Year edition or something like that. You can use mods for Skyrim.
Are you thinking of Skyrim?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking Oblivion, baby.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's no way to use mods on Oblivion that I know of.
It's like, that is news, and I need to stop the podcast and go install some Oblivion mods if that's the case.
No, you're right. Pop-Tart definitely needs to fight Mehrunes Dagon and
Shea Gorath and shit like that.
Talk to Patrick Stewart.
And Sheen Bean, he's in that one.
Sheen Bean's in it?
Yeah. Sheen Bean's like the prince who was promised, essentially.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
That's Mr.
Like
Sheen himself?
Yeah, he's like the dude who, hey, welcome to Video Game Podtimism, the optimist video game variety show. Where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. I had to stop the sentence mid because it's so uninteresting.
Yeah.
My name is Chase.
My name is David. But wait, what was his character's name? What was the name again? Something Septum, right?
Yeah.
It's not Uriel Septum, is it?
No, that's the dude in the
dad.
beginning. That's Patrick Stewart. Martin Septum.
That's such a more boring name than Uriel.
Uriel's a pretty good fantasy name.
That's a strong fantasy name. And then Martin?
That's just a guy.
Maybe they're big like Game of Thrones fans.
I was going to say it wasn't even out then, but the books were, huh?
The books were.
George been cranking for a while.
George cranked 3 books real hard in like 4-5 years, something like that. And then the last 2 have been 15 years.
He's really had a lot of time to think on those ones.
I think it's been a decade since The Dance of Dragon.
Hey, have you been playing video games, David?
Yeah. Yes, I have been. Sorry to get on my George R.R. Martin tangent there for a second.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I have been playing video games. They're still fun.
Could you tell me about them, please?
I've been playing Balatro again. I'm back in it.
Okay. Wow.
It's a great game to just play in between other games because I feel like I'm still kind of searching for the next like very big game I want to play that's new to me after beating Erd Tree.
Sure.
It's a great sleepy game. I think I've talked about this before, but even better,
somehow.
like I can't sleep game and just stay up, play a run of Balatro, and it massages my brain and I go to sleep. It's quite good.
It does sort of engage the part of my brain that allows me to go to bed if it's busy.
Yeah, there's a certain like flow state that it lets me get into that just quells any sort of like internal monologue that might be keeping me awake at night, you know? So really fun game. Still, I'm trying to just beat the game once with each deck and just see where I go from there. But I feel like this is just going to be a game I just play on and off for years, a la Hades, right? It's just so good to just pop in and just play around. Each one's different. It's very impressive. Totally. Still been playing Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice.
Sure, yeah.
The combat is just so good.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You just feel like each battle you are on a razor's edge and just like 1 millisecond and you're just fucked. It really, nothing else really captures that sensation of an actual sword. Not that I've been in a sword fight before, but what I would perceive as being like how you would feel in a sword fight. Just it's just such high stakes. It's just so good. The combat is still so good and just pristine in this game. I also
you know from your days as a wandering Ronin in Japan.
Yes, I am Daroni. I also forgot how fleshed out the stealth is in this game.
Yeah, it is, weirdly enough.
Yeah, they really put a lot of thought into it. They gave you a lot of items to help with stealth, gave you a lot of skills to learn to help with stealth. And stealth is like a pretty viable option throughout most of the game.
Yeah.
That's something that, going and playing all the other FromSoft games and then going back to Sekiro, which is the first one I played, it's a very stark contrast.
It's pretty jarring compared to the other ones.
Yeah, it really is. And it's pretty impressive that they were able to nail stealth so well.
Yeah.
Like they really knew how to place ways to get out of sticky situations, like with the shinobi arm to grapple yourself out, with the reeds to hide, with just the way that every single roof kind of slants, right? And like meets in a point and then goes down. You can just hide behind there. It just did all of that so well. And they nailed it in one, which is just so impressive.
It is really shocking because I feel like in any other game that does action and also tries to do stealth, you usually get one of those.
One suffers. Yeah.
Yes, one definitely suffers. I feel like maybe Ghost of Tsushima got kind of close with like it allowing you to do either kind of the loud or quiet approach.
Yeah.
Or even like Hitman, kind of like the most recent run of Hitman's allows you to do either one. But usually, especially in a game that's like mostly action focused in its bosses, it simply wouldn't work very well. So it's really impressive that they're able to design both the combat system well enough and just the world well enough to support either one.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a really smart way of doing this game for FromSoft, because in other FromSoft games, you were able to kind of rely on the crutch of leveling up if an area is too hard.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in most stealth action games, the stealth way of doing things is oftentimes like the right way of doing it if you can muster it, right? Whereas in this one, it feels like the easier way of doing it is by just fighting people, but you really just have to master that. So the stealth component is this really nice pressure valve. Like if things get too hot, you can go out, hide, pick people off one by one to make it more manageable, and then you go back in and fight. So it's really nice kind of organic way of giving players who maybe aren't as good at this type of game or who are still kind of learning how the game works, this way of thinning the herd, which is pretty effective, because most enemies, even like really strong ones, if you sneak up on them and do a stealth attack, they're dead. It's over, right? So yeah, it just gives you a really nice way of engaging with the game, still being able to progress the story without having to really, just grind up against these bastards if they're just kicking your ass. So they're just so good at making games. Really good, It's ridiculous. So yeah, still having a lot of fun with Sekiro. I am making my way to Ashina Tower or Ashina Castle. Sorry, everyone. I have beaten the bull now. I've beaten the 7 spears of Ishin guy who's over by the Tower of the Moon in the reservoir area. And then now there's a bunch of different branching paths as well. I could go down to the monkey area. I could go down to Senpo Temple if I wanted, but I'm just going straight for Genichiro right now. Yeah. I'm just kind of going back, and it's like a hit list right now of just trying to conquer these old foes who just demolished me when I was but a scrub at these games, a Newman at these games. Definitely the 7 Spears of Ishin boss over by the Moon Tower kicked my butt again many times, but it was not as frustrating as it was before. So yeah, it's just it's cathartic in a way for me, this run through, because I did beat Gyobu in one go, and I was like, man, this guy kicked my ass
in one Gyobu,
and I beat Lady Butterfly pretty handily as well once I got a couple more prayer beads going, or prayer necklaces, I should say.
I feel like she's definitely a boss that once you kind of lock in, you've got it for the most part.
Yeah, because her skill set doesn't change too much between her two forms. She just adds that the spirits and like the big shooty attack with the spirits that she has. Yeah. And that's about it. So yeah, once you
lock in,
get into the patented gamer pose, sitting on the edge of the chair with your knees or your elbows on your thighs, you're good to go. But yeah, Genichiro is truly going to be my litmus test of how far have I come truly since I have played this game last.
Can you imagine the glory if he's just a pushover? That's the good shit.
I'm not letting myself manifest that in my mind quite yet, because I don't want to get too cocky. But
yeah, that level of ego is weakness. You have to destroy that thought.
I have to have more humility than that. That's one thing that this game teaches you very well, is you have to be humble.
Got to be humble and patient.
Humble and patient. That is the way of the game. That's so good that is what this game teaches you through its combat. Oh,
it's so very cool. It's very interesting that they're just able to do that through like swinging a sword. I mean, and just like the counter system, like the Makiri counter. If you panic when someone is thrusting at you with a spear or a sword and you move to the side or move forward, you don't do the counter. You do a step dodge and you're going to get caught by that attack. You just have to stand there and wait for it to almost hit you, and then you step on the blade and hit them. It's so good. It's one of the more satisfying moves in the game.
Absolutely. I was so bad at it the first time I played. I never used it.
Me too. I genuinely, I didn't get it until the final boss, until I like had to know it.
Yeah. Exactly.
God, it's so satisfying though.
The game is so good.
Yeah.
The game is so incredibly good. So yeah, still having a very good time with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Sure.
And then I also decided, a little curveball, to jump into Guilty Gear Strive.
Whoa.
Curveball, like I said.
If I were to guess at what games you were going to bring, that wouldn't even be, I think, in the top 100.
You know, I was downloading Rage, the game we're doing for the show this week, and I figured, hey, I might as well like play something else while I'm waiting for this to download.
Sure.
Guilty Gear Strive was right there, and I just streamed it, and it worked great.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I've never played a Guilty Gear game.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah. I'm not a big fighting game person in general, at least not like 2D fighter. I like more 3D fighters and arena fighters.
Yeah. I was going to say, you like Smash and you like Soul Calibur.
Exactly. Yeah. I like Smash, I like Soul Calibur. So those are more my fighting games, but these ones where you really have to like the Evo type of fighting games have never quite been my bag. They've always been very intimidating. I don't know. I'm just never put in the effort or the time to get good at them, to be quite honest, right?
Yeah.
And fair in my...
If you got good at one of them, it would probably translate, but I also have never cracked the code of like the kind of, I think there's a word for them, but essentially the directional input type fighting games.
Yeah.
Of like this, Street Fighter, King of Fighters, Tekken, any of that shit. Like I don't know how to play any of those games very well.
I always just feel so slow.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
It seems like a much more defensive based game of like knowing how to read your opponent and then like doing attacks at the right moment rather than just kind of like constantly putting pressure like you do in Smash.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's from the outside looking in, it might be exactly the opposite.
Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, I played that one because I've seen like all sorts of cool videos online of people just doing crazy shit in this game. I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. I love the anime style of the game. That's a lot of fun.
It's really cool. Yeah.
It looks amazing. All the characters have such cool designs. They all seem so unique and interesting. I love that the main protagonist's name is Soul Bad Guy.
It's incredible.
That is an unmatched name. That is so good. Very Podtimistic name, I think.
Absolutely.
It's really good. He's a good guy, but his last name is Bad Guy. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
But I also enjoyed that I chose to do story mode, and then it just started playing me an anime.
That's
like
really
there was no gameplay. I sat there for like 15, 20 minutes and like I never played anything. So I was kind of confused. I'm like, are they just showing me like the story of the game and it's just an anime? Like I was not mad about it, but I'm like, where's the game?
Yeah.
Where's the game? You know, I think it was a fun game to kind of dip my toes in and just like get a touch of it because it's leaving Game Pass, and that's why I chose to play this one.
Sure.
And I was just curious. I don't think I'm going to go back because once again, like fighting games just are not my bag. But if there was one that I would spend the time to like try to get good at, it would probably be something like this. Just a really cool art style, really cool characters, unique, different. Yeah, I think this would probably be the one that would get me if I had the time and the desire to get good at one of these games. But yeah, it was fun. I had a fun time with it.
It's a really good one. I played this last year a little bit.
Yeah, you were talking about it.
Yeah, I had played it. I essentially do my run at trying to play one of these games. I did the same thing with Street Fighter, where like it seems good and fun, but I just never crack the threshold of like, I think I know exactly what I'm doing and I can read the game in the way that I want to.
Yeah.
It's still kind of chaotic in a way where I'm like, when I get to the end of a match, I'm like, I think I understand why I lost that, but I'm not positive, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas again, with like something like Smash, it's like, if I get beaten, I'm like, all right, I know exactly the shit that I need to look out for next time.
Exactly.
Which is, it's just a level of being good at a game, a fighting game specifically, that's really hard to acquire, but is so satisfying once you get there. There's very few games for me where that's the case, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Where it's like I just don't know enough.
Yeah. I will say that the most recent Street Fighter has a really good on-ramp for people who aren't as familiar with that shit. They essentially have like a very simplified control scheme that requires significantly less input.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. I don't remember specifically if that also like kind of restricts the level of variety that you can do, like if there's kind of a drawback to that, because I remember there being some discussion about like, should people be able to use this at like tournaments or something? But for just people like you and me who are like, I will never step foot in an arcade and be like, it's time for me to challenge someone at Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, definitely not.
Who are just like, I would like to play a video game and have fun with it and maybe get a little bit better, but like, I don't need to be professional. That it was really a boon for that kind of play, because it really did feel like, oh, I feel like I'm playing Street Fighter right now. Like I'm able to adjust my moves and like change how I'm approaching people who are fighting me and shit like that is really good.
You know, it's funny you use the word professional there.
Yeah.
Because I think probably one of the things that has always not fooled me, but has kind of been a dissonant thing with me with these sorts of fighting games is that on the outside, they look like just a colorful, fun time. Yeah. But really, it's like the depth and complexity is that of like a simulation game, right?
Yeah, you're farming simulator in there.
Exactly. It's like if you were looking at Mario Kart, but then it played like Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's you're trying to play Pilot Wings, but suddenly you have to do like Microsoft Flight Sim out of nowhere. You're like,
exactly.
What the fuck is happening
You're like,
here?
no, it feels like false advertising sometimes to me. I'm like, I just want to go in and do a Hadoken and do a big kick or a punch, Dragon Fist somebody, and make it feel good. But they just want so much from me. I'm like, I respect it, but I just don't have the energy or the time for it.
Yeah. I think that's why Soul Calibur worked really well for me early on, because it is very okay with you being kind of bad at the game for a long time.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like you stumble upon combos in Soul Calibur. Like there is an element of button mashing that will get you somewhere, but then at a certain point you have to know like what the buttons you're mashing are doing. Yeah. And then you can really start playing the game.
Yeah. It does feel like the skill, what is that? I guess the skill floor is a little higher there. So like, you can only be so bad at Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
Whereas like you can be truly horrendous at these kind of fighting games.
Oh yeah. Like laughed out of the building horrendous for sure.
Yes. Like I just did some straight punches for a while.
Yeah. I'm so bad that I've offended people who have spent like their lives playing this game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like the forward and attack button combo in Soul Calibur, like that's a pretty viable combo a lot of the time of just like hit the attack button a bunch and move towards your enemy. Like that's a thing. Like Keelik does like a nice little combo and it feels good and shit.
Feels good. Do some damage.
If you're just moving towards somebody and punching in Guilty Gear or Street Fighter or anything like that, it's like, good luck, buddy.
You're leaving yourself up for a lot of punishment.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I had fun with it. It was a colorful, fun time, regardless of my inability to really play it effectively.
If nothing else, just the visuals are such a treat.
Absolutely. And like the animation, like how smoothly it's animated, it feels so good on the eyes.
It really does. And I'm surprised that like there isn't so much more of this. Obviously, I'm sure that it is incredibly hard to make games like this, but you know, a lot of the fighting games of, you know, the early kind of 90s, early 2000s, that era, they're all limited by the processing power of the systems. But because we have so much now, you can do shit like Guilty Gear, where it's like, it feels indulgent in how many frames they've got in everybody's animation and shit.
They're adding frames you can't even see at this point.
Arc Systems also did that Dragon Ball Fighter Z game, which also looks just so good.
Oh, this was the same people who did Dragon Ball Fighters.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I see that.
It's really cool. And like, honestly, I'm glad that game exists, because it felt like it was like taking seriously a Dragon Ball Z fighting game, which is usually just like mash buttons. But I will say I am extremely hyped for Sparking Zero.
I was about to say, Sparking Zero is much more up my alley. I want to go blue and look cool doing it. Yep.
It's this is totally Dragon Ball Z tangent time. Welcome to the Dragon Ball Corner.
Dragon Ball Z.
But
you're going to play the Dragon Ball Z theme song right over that?
Just a little bit of it. Dragon. I'm really excited for Sparking Zero because like I have watched some of Super, but I honestly would love to just play through the story in a video game form. That would be really nice for me.
The pacing might be better in the game.
Probably, because it's a little bit more interactive, you know? Like I don't Super never felt indulgent in the way that Z was, as far as like how long things were taking, but like still had to watch kind of a lot of Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super to get there, you know.
But still, compared to like a modern anime, it's like, let's get this going. Let's get this going, everybody.
Yeah, it's very weird watching modern shonen because like the pace feels breakneck compared to the like slow plodding fucking Walt Whitman ass pace of Dragon Ball Z. Just so lengthy. This is fucking Song of the Open Road going on here. It's so long.
Oh man, yeah, indulgent for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, nice. Love that. Love that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's all I've been playing. What have you been playing, Jace?
I got one game for you, dude.
Yes. What? Wait, one?
I've got one that I'm mostly playing. I can definitely talk about two if you're feeling saucy, but I got one that's like on my list, you know.
Hit me with your one and done. I love it.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
I may feel inspired.
If you're feeling inspired, hit me with the two. It's good.
The one that I wrote down that I would love to talk about is a game called Forever Skies, David.
What is this?
Forever Skies is a game by this company called Far From Home, and they have made a survival crafting game, I think is probably the closest thing. And essentially the pitch of it is that you have returned to Earth as a person who has like been away for a long time. Like I think the implication is that we are like spacefaring people now.
Okay. And
that we've like returned to Earth to try and like figure some shit out. But it's like just totally ravaged by like ecological disaster. And it's like super duper uninhabitable, right? Mm-hmm. Like so far as I can tell, nobody lives here. And there seems to be like other maybe teams that came here at some point, but they have like long since been dead. So far as I've played up to this point. And the surface of Earth is like, you cannot go there because there are just these like what almost look like waves of like huge amounts of like dust and wind that are constantly blowing across the surface. So like you can't even see it most of the time. There's just like what kind of looks like liquid. Spores aren't the right word, but just like bad stinky air that's on the surface.
Bad stinky air.
Yeah, bad stinky air on the Earth. Can't go to the surface.
Got that BSA.
Got that BSA. And so the way that you move around this game is that you are initially just given this like kind of small, essentially like blimp that you can pilot. So
this is a blimp game?
This is a blimp game.
Oh, hell yeah.
I know, it's pretty cool. I like just the visual like kind of motif of it is pretty cool. And not like a blimp where you're in a just single little like hot air balloon seat, but like you build like an interior sort of like
a dirigible.
Yes, like a dirigible.
Cool.
The balloon is quite a bit smaller than an actual dirigible, but like still that kind of idea where there's like a big balloon that is holding what you're essentially interacting with.
It's a floating home.
Pretty much, yeah. So there's like a component of base building that goes along with this.
I love this. This is great.
I know. It's pretty neat,
good.
Right? just the visuals and sort of the idea of it, I think really work for me. So yeah, I've seen people compare this to two things. One, Subnautica, which I think immediately kind of stands out, right? Like if like there's this survival place that you are not equipped to be in certain areas and you kind of have to like dip your toes into every now and then and like try and survive and make sure that you're not like running out of food and water and all this sort of shit. And the component of like having this kind of big vehicle that you're always taking around with you. That happened later in Subnautica with like the Colossus, the huge like submarine that you have. But this one you get it almost immediately. And that's cool. Like I think it's cool to just have a vehicle right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And there's sort of like just the visual theming of it kind of reminds me of Subnautica too. Just like kind of the colors that they choose to use remind me of it. But the other game that I've seen people compare it to is the game called Raft, which is also a survival kind of crafting game. And I played that one last year and I found it fun, but I definitely like fell off at a certain point.
That one sounded stressful.
It is. And yeah, it definitely felt like I am much closer in my reality to having to do something like this, you know, like I am spooked of big open water. So like Raft was a little bit frightening. And again, Subnautica is cool because it allows you to be in the water without it always being scary. Sometimes you're just kind of floating around with like the nice little fish. But this game is similar to Raft in the sense that like you have this big vehicle that you're taking around, but also that the baseline, just like low level resources that you have to gather are pretty much just always floating around in in Raft, the ocean, and in Forever Skies, in the sky. Like there's just shrapnel and detritus always kind of floating around that you can essentially like mine. You have like a little laser on your ship that you just shoot at the shit, and then it, you know, beams up to your blimp.
What can the ship not do?
A lot of things initially. That's one of the few things it can do.
Okay, fair enough.
And so, yeah, I mean, it goes essentially like you would expect it to, where you have very few things you can craft initially, and you're also just like trying to figure out like, how do I get enough food and water to not die immediately? But the loop that the game ends up running on is that there are a lot of these outposts that were built here seemingly from prior attempts to like fix Earth. And it's all these like little outposts just kind of sticking out of the dust of the world, right? So they're still very high in the airs. And so you're just kind of flying your blimp around, landing on these places and being like, okay, what's here that I can use and scavenge and like, you know, figure out new technologies from if possible. And so you do that and then bring it back to your blimp, and, you know, hopefully you've got some more resources and shit that you can use. And maybe you can upgrade your engine to go a little faster or your turbines to go a little higher, which is also very helpful. There's like essentially a max altitude that you can get to, which is problematic initially, but it's just a way the game like gates you from progressing like beyond the mountains or to other locations that you can't really get to yet. And so, yeah, you just kind of continue through that loop, and all the while it's feeding you pretty similar to how Subnautica feeds you stories of like little data pads that you'll find and be like, hey, here's what happened to these people, and oh boy, there's their skeletons, so they clearly didn't make it out of here, but
hey, there's their skeletons, so you at least know something about them.
Yeah, exactly. They did one thing that I know. And yeah, I think that that's pretty cool. Like I'm a Subnautica fan, and so a lot of that stuff works for me on a baseline, but I think that this game is definitely doing it well enough that it's got me interested, right? I feel like survival games and survival crafting games are like so hit or miss for me.
There's so many of them.
There's a lot of them.
They were like a huge trend, like what, 8 years ago? A decade ago?
I feel like they're still pretty hot.
They're still trendy. That's true.
It's not really to the same fervor that you had when like Rust and like Ark were coming out and shit like that, where it's like, yeah, kind of similar stuff where it's just the hottest hot. But like Raft came out in 2022 and currently has almost 300,000 reviews on Steam, which is like exceptionally high. That is a lot of reviews. And so I think these games are still really popular. I think just like there are so many people who played Minecraft, and especially people who played Minecraft as kids, who like just love the survival crafting genre.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I get it, right? Like I think at a baseline, the excitement of a survival game is pretty visceral of like, here's this game, they're going to establish some rules and it's up to you not to die. That's like, it's almost like Mario level basic of just like run to the right, you know? And I think that works. Like I definitely get it. And usually the survival games that work for me are the ones where like I get that feeling almost immediately of like, oof, I do need to survive. I feel the stakes of this. So all of that is working pretty well for me here with Forever Skies. And like I said, just to reiterate, like the theming and the kind of like sci-fi half of this is really something that is working well for me. I see pretty often like space survival games and space crafting games, and very few of them work for me. And I think it's largely just because it is presenting you with just space. Like space is the thing. And there's not a lot of like artistic leans to it where they're kind of doing something different with the setting. And I think that's why Subnautica works, because it is such a swing as far as like the whole game is underwater and there's a lot of weird shit that you haven't seen before. I don't think like Forever Skies rises to that occasion as far as like just the success that I saw in Subnautica, but like there's a lot of artistic choices happening here that I find pretty intriguing. Again, just the pitch of the surface of Earth is uninhabitable and you have to traverse via blimp, like that works. That's pretty good. And so I am just kind of sticking around for that reason. I will say one of the biggest challenges that I have with this game is just fucking inventory space. Man, oh man, did they not give you a lot of inventory space? And I've just got like boxes and boxes and boxes in my raft of just all the shit that I've collected.
Just hoarding some stuff, huh?
It's a lot of seeds. They give you a lot of seeds.
All right.
And because you're always, running out of food, I'm never like, well, I should throw this away. I'm like, no, I gotta like hang on to some of this stuff in case I like run out or whatever. And so just until I found the bigger box that you eventually unlock, spoilers, it can be really challenging to like just manage the amount of stuff that you've got. I will say the only other thing that like has kind of got me thinking with this game is just that it's kind of bizarre that a lot of these survival games are rooted in this like kind of environmentalist perspective. And like, I like that, to be clear. It's just like, it's strange that this genre really lends itself to telling stories of like ecological disaster or like how it can be really destructive to interfere with the environment, you know?
It's the survival game that we're all playing right now.
I mean, I think that's part of it, right?
It's like, it's relatable.
It's operating on such a visceral kind of like lizard brain part of the genre that like when you're telling that story, it also makes sense to set it in a world where like your ecosystem is harmed in some way by either your interaction or your not interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a lot of what's going on in Subnautica, even like down to the actual story beats.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what's going on here, or like Sunken Land or something like that. I think to some extent like Green Hill as well, which is like, I think that one bends a little bit more towards like have a respect for nature in a certain way. There's like almost a Discovery Channel lean to a lot of these games of like, just at a base level, we want you to appreciate Earth, you know? Or at least like, I should say like 2002 Discovery Channel. That shit ain't the same anymore.
Discovery Channel slapped back in the day.
It really did. Yeah. It was a lot of just like seemingly something that a teacher would put on when they're sick and they want to just have a VHS day or whatever. I think
that was kind of the original conceit.
Yes,
very educational channel.
Yeah. Which thanks YouTube for filling that niche for us all.
Yeah. Honestly.
It's also just like that same void is just so filled for me by how it's made. Me, oh my, do I love how it's made, David.
Just on YouTube or?
I think it was uploaded to some streaming service recently. Like every season of how it's made.
This is one of the most on-brand things I think I've heard you say.
Yeah.
Like, show me that factory. Show me how it's made, baby.
It's all just so...
What kind of skill trees you got? Technology trees,
it's all so efficient in a way that I would never want to build any of this shit, but I'm like, man, y'all got it down for how to make fucking oranges, you know?
I'm not a hobbyist, but I'm an appreciator.
Absolutely. I don't want to do this, but holy moly, love to see it. So yeah, that's Forever Skies. It's still in early access, so I think that there are some parts that feel a little bit less polished than others. But I'm largely still enjoying it, and am definitely going to keep playing, probably up until the point where it's like, all right, that's enough. That's all we got. But and I, you know, caveat this with all like, or to caveat all that, just like parts of it do feel like early access. Like if you pull it up, there are some things that are janky and like whenever I'm in the mining laser too long, I start like my body starts drifting just to the right for some reason. I don't really know why.
You got the old mining laser drift.
Yeah, I got the bad drift.
The drifties.
Daddy had it too.
Daddy had the drifties. I got the drifties.
And so there's caveats with all this, and it just isn't really bothering me that much, but it is present. It is there.
You notice it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm hoping that once this hits 1.0, it will be like kind of a complete experience and a little less janky, but still, I'm having a good time with it.
Nice. I love that. Sounds fun. I love a blimp. There's haven't been many blimp games.
Love a blimp. Yeah, it's very few blimp games, in fact.
Here's an idea for a game.
Yeah, hit me.
It's not a survival game, but it's an avert disaster game, and it's the Hindenburg.
Okay. Oh my God. Little alternate history.
It's like a roguelike, history. But you have to figure out how to avert the disaster of the Hindenburg, and each time you do it, you get a little bit better.
This is like Deathloop, but for the tragedy of the Hindenburg.
You're welcome, gaming community.
Yeah, shouts out to a big blimp.
Shouts out to a big blimp.
The only other game that I've really been playing that is worth mentioning is that I'm replaying Signalis right now.
Ooh, nice. Where and how are you playing it? Because I always want to touch this game.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy it quite a bit.
It looks like my thing.
I'm playing it on Switch. It was recently like just a little bit on sale. It was like 30% off, like it's not expensive to begin with, but I think that was like $15 or something.
Not bad.
I'm playing it for a thing. And so like I just wanted to replay it through it again, and like, God, this game is just so fucking good. It's so amazing. Like again, after having played more lo-fi horror games and also having played like Fatum Batula and How Fish is Made for .zip recently, the other podcast that host with AJ and Kim, this one's just so good. It like synthesizes so much of what makes the genre interesting and then just puts its own switch on the whole thing. It like changes everything to the point where it just ends up being so cool while still feeling like Resident Evil and Parasite Eve and like all these older games, but it's doing its own thing. It's just, oh God, I love it so much.
Hell yeah.
it's also so unsettling and really cool, but it's also like maybe a love story and is really cool with that too.
All right.
Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I don't want to say too much just because the thing I'm preparing for, but it's amazing. It's still really good. I like wanted to wait until October to play it, but I was just antsy. I'm like, how about August for
why not?
Why not?
We're touching fall at this point. With
August. We're sort of creeping over there. It's been weirdly rainy in Seattle in August, but yeah, it definitely feels like we're on the way to August, which for me personally in my brand, I'm like, oh man, that was a quick summer because it didn't really start until July in Seattle. Yeah,
it's been hot here in Santa Barbara, but I went to Costco the other day and there was a dancing skeleton for sale.
Yeah, got to start them soon. Got to start them early.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Anyway, David, this will bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week.
Which is?
It is the pretty good press coverage of Avowed right now.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of positive things about that. I've heard of the name of this game, but like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Avowed is a like kind of first person fantasy game that's being developed by Obsidian Entertainment.
So like a Elder Scrolls-esque game then.
You're getting the idea, David. Yeah. You're seeing what I'm seeing.
You can't say first person fantasy without saying Elder Scrolls.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Obsidian are the people that made Knights of the Old Republic 2. They also made Alpha Protocol, the game we covered a little while ago.
Yeah.
But I think most notably, they made Fallout New Vegas, the Pillars of Eternity games, and then also the Outer Worlds, sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're also trying to make this new game called Avowed. And like, part of me is just waited on bated breath because like Starfield was okay. I liked it and I enjoyed playing it, but like it wasn't the sort of return to form that I was kind of hoping Bethesda would have.
Yeah. And
I am also just like, we are never going to get the Elder Scrolls 6. That will never come out.
So far off.
And so at when they're starting to pitch like, okay, this is a first person fantasy game, I'm just like trying to not look at my love of Oblivion and Skyrim and be like, oh man, I hope it's good. Like, let me just not jinx this and put that pressure on it.
Don't make me love again.
Yes. Yeah. Because a lot in my mind, like the days of having that good of a fantasy game in first person are kind of behind us for the most part.
Yeah.
Like Oblivion and Skyrim feels like something that has happened in the past. And that there will not be another one. Like
Skyrim came out in what, 2012, 2013?
2010. Sorry, 2011.
2011.
It was a long time ago.
Jeez,
13 years ago. And like, I'm a Podtimistic person. I will always try to find the good in something, but like, just kind of betting wise, I'm just not really expecting Elder Scrolls 6 to be that amazing. You know, it's probably going to feel a lot like those other games and it may be very dated in that way. And so for another company to be like, all right, well, maybe we take a crack at this too is just like so interesting. And kind of my point here is that I have been seeing more like previews of this game. Like I saw John Walker at Kotaku writing about it and it was like, yeah, it's pretty good so far. And so I'm just like, hey, is it maybe time to feel hope again for another kind of game
for this genre that has been just totally a one pony show this whole time?
Yeah, it's mostly just been Bethesda's game and they haven't even put out a game in that genre in forever. So
almost a decade and a half.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. So I am waited on bated breath. I hope it's good. I hope it's really fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I've heard about this game, but I didn't know what it was. But that sounds awesome. If they can nail that, that would be pretty cool. I mean, it sounds like they kind of nailed a Fallout-esque version of it with Outer Wilds too, or Outer Worlds too.
I liked Outer Worlds, but it hasn't really stuck with me in the way that I was hoping it would. Like I remember enjoying it when I was playing it, but like once I stepped away from it, I'm just like, my brain just totally disregarded my experience with it, which is kind of strange.
Good while you're playing it, but not memorable, I guess.
I think so, yeah. Like I had a good time with it, but yeah, it just didn't really stick with me in the way that I was hoping a game like that would. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I got going on. David, is there something fueling your sense of optimism?
Yeah, it's a good stealth takedown.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially if it's from like jumping down on someone. Just feels good.
It does feels good.
Feels like I am a shinobi. Feels like I am Sam Fisher.
Yeah.
Feels like I am the hitman.
I was just going to say the Splinter Cell takedowns are the one that I think of whenever I think of stealth takedowns.
Not Metal Gear Solid.
Not Metal Gear Solid, because usually I'm it feels kind of slow in a lot of ways.
Usually I'm tranking people in Metal Gear Solid. I don't usually
Absolutely.
I don't mess with the CQC because I feel like I'm just going to fuck something up and like just give them a little silly slap and then they just alert everyone to me in the base.
It happens a lot when I'm playing Metal Gear Solid. If I try and engage with like punching, they'll almost always turn around and be like, hey, or I'll hit the button in CQC that just makes me as Snake like scream into their microphone like, I'm over here. Come and get me. Come and fight me.
That is the secret button combination in Metal Gear Solid to make it a lot harder.
So yeah, I think like the Sam Fisher one feels good because it's very quick. He's usually pretty good about like being able to hit somebody, stab him, and like pull him back into the shadows real quick. Yep. Batman Arkham Asylum too. Got a great stealth takedown.
That is a good one. That is a good one. I was thinking of Sekiro personally.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Real good. Especially from up above. Ooh, feels nice. Feels nice. Ghost of Tsushima also had really good ones.
True.
Especially when you can start like chaining them into like multiple.
Oh man.
That was good.
I think Far Cry 3 also had a pretty good system for a little while there where it's like if you hit someone, same deal where like you can unlock something where you can start throwing knives at people once you've done one stealth takedown.
That's right.
Which is really, really good.
That was a good game. I enjoyed Far Cry 3.
I think 3 was kind of like, okay, so 2 and 3 is what the series would go on to be, and 2 is just like almost a different genre entirely, despite the fact it's still like a shooting game.
Yeah.
And so both are incredible, but 3 is like, I think the best version of that. The formula that it would go on to do. Yeah. Voss is also just like such a good antagonist in that game.
It's a classic.
Really, really fun. It is a total classic, total banger.
But the ending of that game is not good.
I don't remember what happens. Isn't there some like magical realism shit that happens?
There's some crazy magical realism stuff, and there's just like no good option. It felt like for the end.
Yes, yeah. I remember that.
It was unsatisfying, but that really at this point, all I remember is that it was unsatisfying. So it's an old game, so I think I'd have to go back and play it again to really give it a good once over.
Totally,
a good analysis.
Might be worth it. We played Blood Dragon. That was interesting.
Blood Dragon was an experience. I enjoyed it. It was weird. It was like Far Cry mixed with Breakdown.
It was a little breakdowny, wasn't it?
A little superhero-esque.
Man, talk about a game I would love to revisit. I really want to see what's going on with Breakdown, if that's any good still.
Weren't there like 3 breakdowns?
There were 3 breakdowns, yeah. I didn't play 3. I only played 1 and 2. I think 2 was pretty good, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I remember 1 and 2 being good, and 3 was just kind of an afterthought.
Wait, we're talking about Crackdown, not Breakdown. Breakdown is a different
game. You're right, not Breakdown. Breakdown, there was 1. Breakdown was a scary cat.
Also a first-person game, weirdly enough. Anyway, now that we're just on to the Hey, Remember This Game segment, do you want to move on to our main thing, Dave?
The most millennial segment of our show.
Yeah, for real.
I'm ready, yeah.
All right, cool. Let's do it. Welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them. Welcome back to this segment.
Yeah, welcome.
We've been on sort of a heater run of, I would call like actually amazing best of their genre video games for a little while.
Yeah, some real luminaries.
Anyway, today we're playing Rage. I'm allowed
just
one.
Coming out.
One
You're
dunk.
coming out up front about this game, huh?
One dunk a year. I'm allowed. I feel like I've earned 1 dunk.
That's fine. One. You're dunking.
We got suggested to play this by listener Connor. Thank you, Connor. On the topic of this game, Connor had said, Rage was an Xbox 360 game that I got from a haul of extremely cheap and used games from GameStop. I was too young at the time to know any developers by name, so I was super surprised to see that Rage was developed by id Software and published by Bethesda. I literally have heard no one talk about this game despite being made by such a well-known developer. Came out in 2011, which was really late in the 360's lifespan, so maybe that's why, but I am not sure. They even released Rage 2 in 2019. Rage is set in the post-apocalypse and has a grungy brown color palette, which is true. You play as someone who basically was in a fallout shelter, and when you come out, the world is turned into Mad Max. I remember being really into the gunplay and the vehicles, but I also remember feeling so lost. I was just following the missions on stuff on the map, but I had no idea what was driving the main character forward. I can't tell you anything about the story or any of the characters, but I think of the game fondly.
All I got to know is John Goodman.
John Goodman is fully in this video game.
Johnny G,
like,
man.
He's in the first, like, he's in the game almost immediately, and I dropped my controller so quickly of like, hey, you, John? What are you doing here? What are you doing in my video games, John?
Mr. Goodman, is that you?
Yeah, why are you here? Why are you in the post-apocalypse? You don't sound like you belong here.
He made it. He made it through.
Yeah, he sure did.
Dan Hagar.
Pretty good name. I like his post-apocalypse name.
Strong name.
Anyway, before we get too far, David, can I hit you with a few hot stats about this game?
Please.
Hot stats.
All right, cool. So as suggested, this game came out in October of 2011 for the 360 and the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
It was made by id Software, which you will definitely recognize as the creators of Wolfenstein 3D, all the Doom games, and the Quake games as well. So like, if you are not familiar with them, these are like kind of the first-person shooter for a little while.
Yeah, first-person Blue Bloods for sure.
Yeah, they really coined that version of shooting games. Obviously, like first-person shooters would go on to be a pretty different thing after the sort of Doom era, but like boomer shooters are like largely based around this era of games that I think id helped develop.
Yeah.
Like they were one of the names in this genre for a long time.
Absolutely.
It's also worth noting, I think, like the timeline of when this game comes out, because there's a couple games between this and the prior one, but I think the last big game that id had put out in their kind of mainline huge entries or huge series was Doom 3.
Sure.
Which I think that was in like 2006 or something.
I can see that.
And yes, yeah, that's what I like. I felt that when I was playing it of like, this is kind of bizarre and does feel kind of like Doom 3.
Yeah, it does.
And the game that would follow this one up eventually was the reboot, Doom 2016. And I feel like they really found their footing with Doom 2016. Like they're like, it seemed like id had kind of nailed what made that series fun and how to translate that into kind of a newer series.
I feel like I see both of the Doom influence on this game.
Yes,
I see a little bit of both of them in here.
Weirdly enough, it's kind of a strange middle point.
Yeah.
Where like you can see all the connections despite the fact like this was not like a huge hit game. It was big. I remember like the marketing cycle around this game being like kind of gigantic.
They were really marketing it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think because like all signs pointed to like, here's the next big game. This is going to be the one.
It's id doing an open world shooter.
Yeah.
What's not to like? Borderlands was big at the time.
I was just going to bring up Borderlands. Yeah, that was like kind of a significant game of the moment.
It just kind of seemed like id doing their own Borderlands. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, I do have a review from our friends at Joe Video of Rage, and I took their review, I ran it through Google Translate a number of times, and then spat it back out in English to get sort of an artist's interpretation of their review, which I'll read for you now, David.
Let's hear it.
The anger captures the essence of the first-person busting genre by combining modern games with classic titles in fun and creative ways. This shows normal maturity, but this is a good thing, but it backfires. As well as the young and the rich. As the tone and style of this game has changed, as did the weapon selection, I ended up falling in love with gun. Why should we buy a BB gun? Some bugs and fixes, or make a constitution. Let's go back to 17. And they gave that a 9 out of 10.
Let's go back to 17. Like 1776?
That's kind of my read of it too.
Let's just go back to 17.
Said, or make a constitution. Let's go back to 1776. Yeah, I think Joe Video is sort of saying, like, let's try the American experiment over again.
That does make sense because they also said, I am in love with gun.
I am in love with gun. Yeah.
They went full American. Did
a George Washington write this?
Yeah, right. Also, I just want to say I am also the anger about the title, the busting experience.
First-person busting
genre. I don't know, man. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That is not a fun time.
A pretty troubling genre if there's any more entries in this one.
This was a great Joe Video review, man.
Yeah, kind of they really had the sauce on this one.
It was a 9 out of 10. They liked it. They were really saucing it up.
They did like this game, which honestly was kind of surprising for me.
They're usually pretty critical.
They usually don't like a lot of video games, whereas they liked Rage quite a bit. Yeah. Do you want to tell me what this game is, David?
Yes, Rage is a first-person shooter set in an open world that you traverse with different buggies and whatnot. You get missions from different NPCs in the game, and it's almost like you go into like dungeons, essentially, like very enclosed areas that are narrow and have like one pathway through them. So it's this kind of interesting mix-up of like a Borderlands and a Skyrim, but you're shooting, like fast-paced shooting-ish, right? Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. Oh, and you have wing sticks.
Got wing sticks. It's like a boomerang with a third arm that also has blades on it.
Yes, a bladed boomerang.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's a pretty like straightforward game pitch, all things considered. How did you feel about this one?
man, it was a mixed bag.
Yes, it's such a weird video game.
I feel like there are some things that are pretty good about it. I did enjoy the opening, like, lore setting
that's fun.
video. I thought it was good because a big old asteroid hits Earth and you'll get put in these little fallout shelters, arc shelters they call them in this one, and then Johnny G. Goodman is there to wake you up afterwards. So it's just like it's a fun, post-apocalyptic, a surprising amount of lore in the very beginning of the game. I thought the graphics were really good for a 360 era game. It makes sense that it came out near the end because I also remember Halo 3 looking really good on the Xbox 360. So yeah, I was impressed by that. That was the most impressive things at the beginning of the game for me personally. Because the gunplay did not start off great. I thought especially for a game by id, I was like, what is this little pea shooter that they gave me? Like, this doesn't feel like fluid or good. Like, it feels like it takes like 1,000 shots to kill one person. But then once you get the shotgun, things really open up, which was nice.
Yeah, it gets quite a bit better the more weapons you get.
Yeah, like the first hour or so is pretty rough, I would say, from a gameplay perspective. They really try to make you feel underpowered, which I think is thankfully a trope that has gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
At least with a lot of more AAA games nowadays, they at least give you a hot second of feeling very powerful if they're going to take things away from you and make you feel weak again.
I mean, even like Doom, they give you a pistol initially, but like you feel great. That one initially.
That pistol rips.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And they're also introducing you to just like, you should be powerful regardless because you're able to like do those finishing moves.
Because you are the Doom Slayer.
Right, yeah. There's a certain amount of like just intense power that they let you have almost immediately. And like, I feel like so many of the first person shooter games from like this era specifically, they're all sort of grappling with like, do we want to make you feel like a superhero or not? Yeah,
this game is definitely struggling between, are we going to make this be fun or are we going to make this feel realistic?
Yes. Yeah. And like, I don't know that they really come down one way or another on it.
They came down in the middle, which I think is the worst thing you can do. You got to go one way or the other and just like go whole hog in that direction. Yeah. And I think that's what they did with Doom 2016. Like, we're just going to make this fun, balls to the wall action. It's going to feel great. Whereas this one, it feels like they wanted to do that, but maybe just they didn't feel like the trend was there yet. They wanted to more play the trend of more like realism of everything. Even though Borderlands was out there and like a very irreverent and goofy game that was very popular.
Yeah. I think Borderlands definitely strikes like their humor stuff aside, because I know a lot of that stuff, like the amount of dick and balls jokes in those games, like every time I boot it up, I'm like, oh my God, like I thought this was good at the time.
It's very of its time.
Yeah. It's aged a little rough as far as just like the writing goes. But, I think that 1 and 2 have really, really fun game loops. They get much closer to the, we're going to try and make you feel like a superhuman most of the time, because you've got like all these kind of like otherworldly powers. Every now and then, kind of they will let you have a very overpowered gun, which is always very fun if you get like the right RNG to get a good one.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think of like other shooters from this era, but like even just going year by year, there are so many coming out at this moment. And I think if I was reading the Wikipedia article about this one, and like, I think they started development of this game in like 2007, if I remember correctly. And it came out in 2011. And I feel like every year there's like a dramatic, huge shift in first person shooters of that era.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's right in the middle of that transition from like the kind of old school World War II shooter of like Call of Duty, which was hot in like 2004 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think Modern Warfare hits in 2006, 2005, somewhere in there. That kind of turns it all upside down. But then you also have the Halo games just firing on all cylinders. I think Reach comes out in 2010. You've got also BioShock is going on in the midst of all of this. And I think BioShock hits a really interesting balance sometimes too, because I think that they're trying to make you feel closer to a god sometimes with like the powers and shit. But they're also definitely emphasizing the like, this is like kind of bad down here and you should feel threatened a lot of the time. Whereas like, I think id succeeds in the games where they're like, you are an unstoppable fucking force.
Yeah.
And that is what is fun about the series that they do. Like, it's true of Wolfenstein too, for the same reason. Of like, you should just go kill a bunch of Nazis. And that's like the game,
The game was fun.
Good, right? It's fun, yeah. And so, yeah, like seeing Rage kind of like split the difference, and, you know, it's taking some stuff from games that feel like they're from 2005, but also it's clearly been living in the moment of like, okay, BioShock just came out. What are we going to do with that? And like, how, do we try and go after this kind of Modern Warfare stuff, or like what's going on with Borderlands? Like,
yeah,
there's just so many things happening at that moment that it feels kind of weirdly out of time in a way.
Sure.
The shooting feels very much like it's in Doom 3, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I played that kind of recently, like within the last year or so. And it feels the same way, where like the pistol is not that strong, and it kind of just feels like this little like pea shooter that you've got.
Yeah.
And they give you better weapons eventually, especially in Doom 3, but like the power imbalance is definitely present, where you're like, I do not feel like cool and strong. And so it's very bizarre to play this one. It's a very strange game.
It is a strange game. It just feels like there were two artistic thoughts with this game that were at war with each other.
Yeah.
Like, do we go with something more irreverent, or we go with something more serious?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that honestly stands out the most to me as indicative of that is the music.
Yeah, the music was so strange.
Like, is the music bad? Objectively, no. Like, it is played well, but it's just such an intense like John Williams-esque orchestral score. It just seems so out of place in a game like this. And maybe I've just been like Borderlands pilled to think like, oh, it should just be silly and goofy in the wasteland. But it just seemed too intense and almost like a weird like tonal juxtaposition to what I wanted the game to be. And I agree with the gunplay. Like, Doom 3 is not known for like its sterling gunplay. It's known for like being scary and kind of a horror game, and the gunplay is as a result kind of plodding and slow. And it does feel like that in this game too. I think they do increase the action a bit, but not to the point, not dramatically enough to make it feel like, oh, this is new, this is different, this is exciting for this world.
I'm with you. It's very very weird. Like, you see all of the parts individually, and you're like, maybe this should work. Like, this should be a thing.
Yeah.
But then when they all come together, they still kind of feel separate in a weird way. I think especially once you get to like the first main town, not the one that John Goodman is in, but like the first big town that you get to, it's very weird. It feels, again, like it's almost in Fallout. A lot of in the moments there, because like your map turns off, it just wants you to kind of explore, and there's clearly a lot of thought that's been put into this place, right? It's I would say pretty well designed, all things considered, like just visually. There's a lot of like interesting, I guess, environmental storytelling of like, how has this place evolved, and, you know, what have they salvaged from the old world, and how do people live here and shit like that. All that stuff is cool, but again, it's after an hour of like, kind of tutorializing, like, here's how to shoot. You should go beat up some bandits. Come collect some parts for a car and shoot some more bandits and shit like that.
Yeah. The loop is not the most satisfying.
No, and again, it feels like it should be. You know, like I think I wanted to buy into it. Like, there's a part of me that's like, this all just feels so close to working.
I was about to say, it feels very task oriented. Like, it just feels like a bunch of chores, because the missions are never like super long. They're all pretty short and bite-sized, but then it's just like, okay, now this person's telling me to go over here, shoot some things. This person now tells me to go over here, shoot some more things, then go back here, get the thing. So there's just like a lot of travel time in these missions that they've built into itself, which just makes it feel more monotonous than I think it could.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, I think what they, or at least what it feels like they wanted to do there, was to sort of endear you to the place and make it feel like I'm having an effect on this world of like, oh, I solved their medical problem crisis. You know, like that's one of the first things you do is just get like medical supplies for these members of a town. But I think because it's just kind of like mission objectives on a map, I don't really feel that change very much. And again, when I'm thinking about like an id game, I don't need to feel the change on the community. you know, like at no point do you feel that in Doom. And oftentimes when you look behind you to see like the destruction that's going on, you're like, damn, that doesn't look very good. Oh, well. And then like keep killing demons, you know? But if I'm thinking about like what games do that, you know, I like, honestly, the game that most recently I was playing, Fields of Mystria, like does that, where like you are doing chores for the town, right? Of like collect 100 stone. And like that is monotonous, but I'm willing to do it because I enjoy the effect it has on these people that I care about and this place that I seem to care about.
Yeah. You don't care about John Goodman?
I like John Goodman's chill, but he's like pretty much it.
Sure.
You know? And or even like the side quest in Breath of the Wild, the like Terrytown side quest where it's like you come to this kind of like barren place and they're like, hey, we're trying to build a town here. And you have to do like, again, pretty monotonous shit of like bring some wood or like go do this one thing for us. Yeah. And it'll like the next time you come back, there's like more houses and there's more people and shit like that. And so it feels like, again, it's just sort of in between these like kind of like ethoses that id has had, where it was kind of experimenting with other ideas from the genre of like from Fallout and BioShock and Borderlands and shit like that, and also trying to combine it with id. And I wonder if that just doesn't work very well. Like the stuff that makes id amazing is not any, it's none of those things. You know, like I think Fallout works because it's this like kind of like RPG and you feel your effect on the world and shit like that. And this game also is trying to do RPG stuff, and it just kind of doesn't really mesh with the like run and gun shooter stuff that is going on here. Yeah, like thinking when I was playing this game and just thinking about like what kind of feels off with this, I'm like, it just feels like they took like a typical like Doom-esque game that is linear and then just took all those separate places, scattered them around a map, and then gave you a buggy to go in between them. And like, I don't know about you, but like personally, like the driving didn't add anything, not much, to this game. Like it's the driving is just driving. Like it's just driving. It's not bad. But it's not like, oh wow, this is good. This is pod racing. It's not pod racing driving, right? It's just like it's just a way to get around. It feels like I'm on my morning commute to like do these missions sometimes. Like, all right, driving through the wasteland again, down the highway. Here we go. I don't know what your thought on the driving was, or like just the vehicles in general. But I just like I just didn't see kind of what they added, if they added anything special to you for the game. Not really. And it like I do wonder if a lot of this stuff is just that like so many genres have done the parts of this game that are being integrated better in the future. You know, like id has made better games that feel better at shooting. And I'm thinking about something like Pacific Drive, that game that came out earlier this year, where you're essentially just customizing your station wagon. That's rad. And that feels great, right? Like, and the driving in that one, like, I think it's probably closer to like a sim, but the ownership over the vehicle is incredible. You really feel like this is my like base that I need to build. This is my wagon. It's my wagon. Whereas like, I think I think this game is just going for a more arcadey feel to the driving, but it's just like, it's fine. It's a vehicle. It definitely feels like a holdover of like, they were probably trying to make a Mad Maxy kind of deal here. And Mad Max relies so much on cars that it's like, well, we got to have cars. Like that's part of the deal. And like, if the places were super far away and you just had to run, that would obviously not be very cool. But like, I'm glad that they give me something to speed up the travel time. But it does feel kind of like, it's fine. I'm driving. I'm driving there. I'm going. Yeah. It is strange. And I was reading reviews of this game and I think it's largely reviewed fairly well, all things considered, like kind of like somewhere between a 7 and a 9 is where it lands for most people. Yeah. And I feel like we've talked about this before, and especially with first person shooter games, like these kind of games of this era, they really feel like they're of this era. Yes. Just because especially first person shooters have iterated so much over the years. Like there are so many of these games, you know, I wouldn't say that there's like a ton of like super interesting mechanical, you know, iterations and changes, but there's enough that it almost feels like there's like a standard expected way to be able to shoot in a video game. Yeah. And so when something doesn't feel like that and it just kind of feels like a worse version of that, then it really, the contrast is pretty stark there. And the same thing goes for like post-apocalypse games, RPGs, action RPGs. All of these things have had games that are really, really inventive and interesting since then. And so it's very strange to play one of this era that's like, it feels pretty, I don't know, basic feels like a really kind of derisive description of this game. And I don't think it's bad. It's just like it it all feels like the middle evolution of a Pokemon. Whereas like, I could play Wolfenstein right now, the very first one, and be like, oh, it's Charmander. He's cute and weird and just a little guy. Whereas like, if I'm looking at the other two, it's like, oh, Charmeleon. It's kind of like lanky and he ain't got the wings yet. He's not even cute.
It's the like the preteen of id Software games.
Kind of, yeah. Like they didn't in Doom 2016, they matured and figured out what made Doom good. They're like, this is it, and we're gonna hammer on that. Whereas, and even in Doom 1, like I regularly replay through Doom 1. And have a great time. It is so much fun and still holds up a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does kind of feel like this is the middle evolution.
Yeah. I feel like they were trying something different, and they learned a lot, I think, from this. And I think that some of the things that are fun in this game, like the shotgun feels great. The wing sticks kind of rock. I actually really like the wing sticks quite a bit.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
That kind of like more powerful and frenetic gameplay is what was kind of forming the basis for Doom, which I think was cool. And like on Doom, you have all those different special like flamethrowers and chainsaws you can use that are like these super powerful items that are limited, but when you use them, it's like, oh, it feels really good. And I feel like you got that little bit of dopamine kick in this game with the wing sticks in particular and the shotgun.
Yeah, I think like such a smart decision in Doom 2016 to not have that be a consumable, but just have it be on a cooldown with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like the items that you can use.
Yeah, that was great.
Again, just because it like the loop of fighting in that game is just incredible. Because you're always doing something and you're running on like, okay, I don't have very much ammo left. So I'm going to hit this guy and then do one of the like punching finishing moves to get some more ammo. And, my flamethrower just came up and I'm a little low on health. So let me do that so I can get some health when I kill these guys. It's just always running like that. And I think that, the freneticism is a part of what makes Doom 2016 so good. It's so urgent in every moment that you're in that game that like you can never relax, and in a good way. Like, there's no moments for kind of downtime. And not that Rage needed to be that, right? I think they could have made a pretty like slow and reflective post-apocalypse game, right? But I think they needed to maybe also tune some of the other stuff too. I mean, I think looking at the arc of Mad Max and the kind of resurgence that they had with Fury Road is like that could have been what this was, right? Like I think they needed to just like reassess like what made that series good in the first place, right? Because I think this game could have been like a sparse and I think fairly gritty game. And like, I think the Mad Max game that came out a couple of years ago is pretty good evidence of that. Of like, it could have been that, right? That's an option. But yeah, it felt very influenced by the moment is the thing that kind of I keep coming back to when I was playing it.
Yeah, it is a game of the times. Definitely felt like it was trying to saying chase trends is such a derisive thing to say, but it seems like it was trying to satisfy a lot of people and then ended up not satisfying many at all because it was trying to be a jack of all trades in a way.
Yeah. Like I said, there were just such big names in this moment in first person shooting, and they kind of take up a lot of oxygen in the room. And I think that's why 2016 Doom spoke to so many people so much, is because it felt like, hey, here's our flag in the ground and we're something almost totally different, despite the fact this is definitely a Doom game.
Yeah.
It was kind of bucking a lot of the trends that had become sort of tired by that point, right?
Regenerating health, just go hide a bit until you can get your health again. But it's no, you have to fight to get your health. You have to continue moving and taking damage and killing. Yeah, it's so good.
And even just the level design.
Yeah.
Something as basic, not basic, but kind of foundational as what do the levels look like? It's so different in that game compared to whatever Call of Duty that came out that year. And again, full acknowledgement that Call of Duty is the game that sells the most every year, but still I think it was pretty refreshing to see them take a genre that is very well trodden and be here's something that is both traditional and new. Whereas I think this one is very much existing among the other just giant games at the moment.
Yeah.
And being I don't know, I guess this is what we got to do, And that's not to put any blame on developers or anything. That's, that's not really my idea here, but just it feels like it's existing in the moment.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I do like the shotgun though. It does feel good, huh?
The shotgun felt good. The wing sticks were fun, and I liked how excited the game was about teaching you about wing sticks and how to use them.
I was thrilled. Yeah,
it's like wing sticks! ! During the tutorial. I really appreciated that. I enjoyed John Goodman in the game. John Goodman is like, I don't know what your opinion is on John Goodman, but I'm always like a little frightened of John Goodman because of his role in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Really?
That was like that is my defining John Goodman moment for me, and like I'm just terrified of the man.
Whoa,
he is an imposing, scary figure to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's like a pretty big guy, right? He's like 6'2". He's like a tall dude.
Yeah. Have you seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, I have. I don't remember almost anything about it though.
He's like the Colossus. No, I forget what he is. What his analogy is in the whatever the Odyssey that they are. That they're riffing off of, but he like just goes and he's a Cyclops. That's it. He like squishes frogs that are supposed to be like one of the main characters, and just like fucks people up and just beats the shit out of them. Just imposing and scary.
I only know John Goodman from The Big Lebowski and the fucking Flintstones movie. Those are the things that come to mind when I'm thinking about John Goodman.
To me, John Goodman is the opposite of Soul Bad Guy. He has a last name with good man, but he is a bad guy.
He's a bad guy. That's so interesting. I only see him as like a hero figure.
No, not for me. So when I heard him, I'm just like, oh God, this game is serious. This game is scary.
That's so funny.
But I enjoyed his inclusion. I do enjoy the lore that they were building up, and just the beginning cinematic was great. And I think there's a lot of like good world building in this game that like it's pretty game to look at.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it looks really interesting. There's definitely the sort of like brown-green filter on this game of that era, but I will say it's like kind of restrained even in my kind of memory of the game. Yeah. Like the sky's still pretty blue, which I'm like, okay, mercifully, this is the way it looks.
And the vistas and just like the terrain are engaging visually.
Yeah. It sort of feels like for me, like I either need a lot more story or a lot less, and I'm not really sure what it needs to be, you know? Like in Doom, it's like you get almost nothing, and that's like fine. You know, like there's lore in there, but it happens sort of around the edges. If you don't look at it, it's just like, doesn't matter. Just beat up demons.
Man.
And, or even like, I know it didn't make the most recent Wolfensteins, but like, I appreciate what they're doing with that game where it is a little bit more story. You're getting a lot more like character driven shit, even though like, I doubt the cutscenes and stuff were that much longer than what's going on here. But like, you know, I think the game wants you to lean on its mechanics pretty heavily, you know, because it's like first couple missions are just go kill some dudes. Then you're going to do a race in a buggy and then blow some stuff up and then go somewhere else. So like, I think I would have appreciated like just more story if they were gonna do that of like give me some people to root for and like who is this guy that I'm playing as. Like I get sort I like read the plot summary and like he's a dude, right? Like there's some backstory here, but like I have no idea why he's doing the things he's doing. He just sort of showed up and he's like, time to kick ass, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
who's this guy who wakes up after like 100 years, a stranger comes and talks to him, is like, I need you to go and just commit some mass murder, dude. And he's like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Hey, okay, boss.
Hit me up with the buggy, I'm out.
Like maybe that's his only option, and like sure, but like give me a little bit of that, you know? Yeah. Show me him being like, whoa, this shirt is different than it used to be, or grappling with like, is this just what I gotta do now? Or, you know, go the Mad Max Fury Road way of like, he's already existed here for a while. Maybe his backstory is still the same of like, he came up out of one of these things, but he's been living here and like knows the rules of the place. But yeah, weird one. I mean, again, when I think about games and specifically shooters from this era, I'm definitely thinking about games like Rage. Like that is what is on my mind. And like, not always in a bad way, but just like a sort of not examining the violence and trying to make it fun, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. Like I like Doom 2016, which is like almost nothing but gratuitous violence that is unexamined. But yeah, it feels very strange in hindsight, because I think there are games that do sort of like check that stuff out or like have something else going for it. You know, like for whatever reason, I kept thinking about Cyberpunk when I was playing this game of like, here is a pretty visceral and kind of like pulpy action focused video game, but still felt like there's a lot of shit going on in there, you know, like there's at least some kind of like anti-corpo stuff happening. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's a very strange game.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's a strange game. Yeah. It's like it exists in this liminal space between good and bad.
Yeah, it's like both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if I point to any individual mechanic, I'm like, I think that works. Like the shooting feels all right. Like driving isn't bad. It's just driving. It feels like driving, and like some of the like the design of Wellspring is pretty cool. Then like town, okay, yeah. But then just like putting it all together, it's like I feel a little lacking.
Yeah,
what's going on?
I think just a lot of it feels a little uninspired. I think is really what it comes down to. Is it crafted well? Yes, but it doesn't seem like there's passion. Where's the passion?
Yeah. Again, to keep bringing this game up, but like in the way that in Doom 2016, it's like you are thrilled to be there. You can tell that the developers are like, we can't wait for you to get into the next fucking room because it's going to be so sick. Yeah. It's going to be so cool.
Exactly. This one's just like, it's going to be a dam this time.
Yeah. Again, I think that feels very of its era. It's like kind of, I think we are still feeling the effects of the success of Grand Theft Auto in this moment of like, everything's got to be an open world game and it's got to kind of rely on its mechanics,
Absolutely.
A strange game. Strange video game.
Strange game.
Anyway, hey, despite how that conversation may have sounded, I had a good time with this game. Connor, thank you for suggesting it because like this is definitely one of the games that I'm like I think about it fairly regularly of like what's going on with that game? Same. What's going on with Rage? Why is it like
this on Steam a long time ago and I played it like the first hour or two of it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool. More David lore.
Big Rage head back in the day.
Yeah. Well.
It's the missing link. It's a missing link game.
I think so. Yeah. Where it's like you can see kind of the connective tissue between where they were and where they would go and experience some success.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Charmeleon.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate
you.
Yeah.
If you would like to interact with our podcast more, you can go to podtimism.com. You can search old episodes. You can look at podcast thumbnail art that Chase has made. You can search for games that we have talked about, and you can make suggestions for games that we should play in the future. If you would like to hear our thoughts on a game that you enjoyed or semi-enjoyed or didn't enjoy back in the day. So head on over there and check it out. Also on that website, there is a link to the Worst Garbage Podcast Network Discord. We are a part of the Worst Garbage Podcast Network with podcasts such as .zip featuring also Chase Albee. Chase Allhart. Fuck. Chase Allhart is on that one. I don't know who the fuck Chase Albee is. He's gone in this world.
You always take it so hard when you say my other last name.
I just feel like I'm not representing you for who you are now.
No, it's fine.
It's fine.
Legally, that is still my name. We have an appointment at the end of September to go fully change it.
So you're only Allhart in your heart right now.
Yeah, no, it's a spiritual connection at this moment.
But other podcasts on that network, Into the Aether, Can't Let It Go, Paws and Claws, and Frog of the Week. Yeah, so head on over. It's a good time.
It is a good time. As we're recording this, and I think by the time this comes out on Sunday, we just put out a bunch of 1,000 Times Resist stuff on the network. Zip put out a 5-hour episode about it, which was very fun to record, and I liked doing it. But Matt Horton from Can't Let It Go also put out a couple of things. One, a YouTube video about the game. It's very good. You should watch it. That's called What Should You Leave Behind? It's 1,000 Times Resist review. And he's also got some cool stuff up on their Ko-Fi page that it's essentially an interview with two of the creators of 1,000 Times Resist, which is really cool. Kim is also on that one. Shouts out Kim. So a bunch of 1,000 Times Resist stuff if you want to hear more about that game. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Scout Wilkinson, for your beautiful podcast art. We love it. You can check out her art or her commissions at co-fi.com/humblegoat.
Yeah.
And thank you, listener, for being here.
Yeah.
It's cool that you do this. Yeah, we would do it regardless. So it's cool that other people want to hear it.
Thanks so much for listening to the show. We deeply, deeply appreciate it.
Chase, do you have any video game wisdom for us this week?
Make your dog play the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Not Skyrim. No. Not Morrowind.
Gotta start him with the classics.
Oblivion only. Yeah.
That's the one with the real sauce. Like Skyrim, listen, Skyrim's the better game. Skyrim is the better video game. But Oblivion's got the sauce.
Chase is waiting for the end of the podcast to have his spiciest take right now.
Yeah, this is where all the hot takes really live. I don't even want to call it a hot take, man. Oblivion's good.
What is the sauce that it has that Skyrim does not?
I don't know. It's indescribable. It's ethereal. You can't put a finger on it. The moment you try, it escapes your fingers. Sort of like the Daedric realm, David.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Go hit up Shea Gorath. He'll tell you the truth.
They do have the cool like cloud temple in Oblivion, don't they?
They sure do. Yeah, that's where you go with Martin Septim when he's like studying the blade
with old Sheen Bean himself.
Yeah, he's hanging out. He's doing his thing.
Does he die in this?
I don't remember. Maybe. I think
I've keeping with Sheen Bean.
I've only beaten Oblivion once, and that I think was in 2006. Here's some Chase deep lore. My dad, like, we went to Fry's Electronics at some point, and he was in the market for like a pretty good TV, and we like upgraded from just like the nastiest TV to like a very good 1080p TV. It was like the wildest purchase we had made up to that point. I was like, why are we doing this? But I was thrilled about it because obviously I'm a gamer. But he bought this like rear projection TV. Do you know what that is?
This rear projection TV. That thing was a monster.
It is gigantic. It is so big. Like not just in the size of the screen, but like the actual physical housing of the television is huge. And I was really thrilled about it, but it had just like brutal input lag. Like it was
unplayable for video games.
of lag, and like I tried to play so much Oblivion on that game and it was just brutal. I like swear I play it differently to this day because I'm like expecting it to take so long for me to get my sword over on the right side of the screen.
Yep. Now I remember trying to play one of the Need for Speed Most Wanted on that with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was impossible.
It was so hard.
It was impossible. It was expert mode gaming.
It was like Dark Souls racing at that point.
Absolutely.
You had to like put your turn on layaway.
You had to use the force to know what was going to happen.
The television looked great, and I hadn't seen anything cooler up to that point. But man, was the input lag tough on that one?
It's not up to snuff nowadays.
No.
Regarding Martin Septim, I looked it up on the Elder Scrolls lore Reddit.
Spoilers for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
The question is Martin Septim really dead? The first response is, I watched dude explode. Second response is, Martin Septim is the Tupac of the Elder Scrolls. People will swear up and down that he still lives and is selling fishing waders near Cheydinhal.
Yeah.
So I think, from what I'm reading, he turned into an avatar of Akatosh and then became stone.
I loved the response. I saw that guy explode.
I saw him explode. I didn't see anything at the end of that game because my PS3 was chugging when Mehrunes Dagon started stomping through the capital city. It could not handle it. I was getting maybe like 5 frames a minute.
Yeah. No, it's not good. It's a shocker, but rendering a gigantic character model is not good for your frames per second.
Not good for the frames per second.
But you know what it is good for?
What?
Exploding a Martin.
Exploding a Martin. We got all the best exploding Martins down at Martin's Exploding Emporium.
You come down here, we'll give you 1 Martin, 2 Martin, 3 Martins for the price of 1 exploding Martin.
Wait, so you can get regular Martins and exploding Martins?
They come in both sizes and shapes. Both flavors, exploding and not exploding Martins.
That just looks like Sean Bean. Yeah, it's a Martin.
That's a Martin, baby. You know what it is.
Martin Septim.
Come down to Martin's Emporium this Sunday.
You can get a Sept of Septims for only $5.99.
Wow, that's a deal only a Martin could love.
God. Oh, Sean Bean. One day you'll live in something you're in.
All right, we'll see you next week, gamers.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.